I fucking love fighting. I love the pre-fight build-up, I love the post-fight aftermath, I love the fighters, I love the fans, I love the promoters, I love the coaches, I love the media, I love all the technical people doing technical shit, cutmen, ring card girls, commentators, announcers. I love the art of it, the science of it, the violence of it, the humanity of it. I fucking love fighting.
Hey there, Must Love MMA fans. Susan Cingari here with another edition of the Must Love MMA Report, where each week we bring you the most interesting stories from around the fight globe because, of course, every fighter has a story. This week, though, we have a really cool guest, one I'm personally excited. I've been waiting to interview him for a long time. Tommy Toehold, welcome to the show. How are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me on.
My pleasure. So, Tommy, talk to our viewers and tell them a little bit about how Tommy Toehold came to be, so to speak.
Well, I was a teacher, an English teacher, for about a minute, and what happened was during that time I was a young teacher, and so the school, they had to make some budget cuts at the time. They took all the young teachers, they let us go. So while I was looking for more teaching jobs, I was doing some substitute teaching. I was doing coaching high school football, and I was also I randomly got into video editing. I was editing weddings, videography for people's weddings.
Okay.
And what ended up happening was, just for fun, I thought, you know what, I really like MMA, and I figured that I could make a really crude animation. And I wanted to do something related to it. I wanted to talk about MMA, and I realized I couldn't be serious if it was going to be a cartoon, but I was worried about the nature of the show because I was going to be a teacher. I didn't want my identity to be known, so I was like, okay, well, I'll give this a shot. Just sort of a fun thing to do on the side while I was waiting for that next teaching job to come, and then it just blew up out of nowhere, and here I am.
Now, so I was looking through the bio of you this evening before we started our interview. You started in 2012, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
How many cartoons do you think you've done in that time?
Oh, my goodness. That's over 1,000, I would imagine.
Wow.
I think there's almost 900 on the channel, and I've probably done 100 or so more for other channels or other people or other projects. So, yeah, I would say definitely over 1,000.
Good for you. Now, I found it interesting when we spoke in our pre-interview. I didn't know if any of the fans knew this. I was kind of shocked because I'm a big fan follower of you for a while. I think your stuff is amazing, creative, funny, fun. You're like the creative genius of MMA. But you really do all the voices as well, right?
Thank you. Happy 4th Fight fans. I'm at Uncle Dana's Cookout, where the vast majority of attendees can't eat because they're cutting weight for this weekend. I, however, can eat, so if you could just give me Daniel's portion, that would be great. Okay, Jack Jones, you think I'm just gonna sit here and let you eat my burger? I'm fighting heavyweight. I've been eating whatever I want. Come on now. Nobody better touch my food. I'm hungry and I'm angry. LeBron James left Cleveland. Luckily, I get to let some of that frustration out on DC's face. You keep that up, I'm gonna wear a Lakers jersey to the cage, bud. Not if Reebok doesn't make it, you're not. How you gonna have a cookout and I can't eat anything?
Yeah, I do. When I first started, like I said, it was so low tech and so low budget, it still is, that I couldn't afford to have anybody on. But as I continued, I thought, yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and do this. And it's funny because in my head, I don't really think about like how many different voices there are. But I think maybe for the 3-year or 4-year anniversary of the show, I ended up doing a montage, not a montage, but I ended up having like a bunch of different fighters that have been popular on the show. I had them sort of appear on that episode, and I had to do all their voices. And I remember when I got done, I thought, I just did like 40 different voices, and that's just weird. I can't even believe that there's that many to do. And I honestly didn't know I could do impressions until I kind of started doing this. But yeah.
Yeah, and you do it really well. The one I particularly love, besides Connor, which I think is just brilliant as well, I love Yoel Romero.
Hey, kids, I'm Yoel Romero. That's my name, Yoel Romero. Listen to me. Listen to the words I say to you. No sit on these stools. If you have a stool, you don't need to sit on these stools.
Did you have any fighters that you found that you had to spend more time kind of imitating their style and their accent than others?
Yeah, Yoel's actually was pretty hard to do, and there's so many people that like to do impressions of him, so I really wanted to make sure that mine was unique in the way that I handled it. But honestly, any sort of accent that is English or even Irish, to be honest with you, if you go back to the very earliest episodes, of my Conor McGregor. I mean, he sounds like the Lucky Charms guy.
Showtime, you ran up from Monsters Inc. looking motherfucker. Look at you. What the fuck you gonna do, huh? You do fucking nothing. Just sit there and fucking smile. Fucking stupid ass motherfucker talking before the shows. Nobody gives a fuck what you have.
It's such a bad impression, but over time, and because he became so popular, I thought I really need to get this right. And so I sat down and I took some time and I really worked on it. It's not perfect, but it's good enough now. But I would say his was definitely a big challenge, and so was Yoel's. And then, of course, I am terrible with the Brazilian accents. Oh, God, they're so bad. Everybody sounds like my Vitor impression is pretty much the feedback I get. But I try. I'm working on them.
I love the Brazilian fighters. I speak Spanish relatively fluently, but my Portuguese is a work in progress, as they say. So I agree with you. So let me ask you another question. How do you decide which fighter, which topic to choose? How does that work for you?
Well, normally I will look at what's happening in the news. If something big is happening, I'll end up getting a lot of feedback on social media too, which helps. I'll get a lot of people saying, "Oh, I really hope you do an episode about this." Usually, the more ridiculous things that occur in the sport, I seem to really gravitate towards. There are certain topics that I don't really like to touch on. If something really serious happens, it just doesn't feel like it fits well with the format of the show. And at the same time, if I don't really feel like there's something funny about a fighter or a situation, I just won't really touch on them. Like a good example I think I could give is like Cain Velasquez, just in general. I don't really find a lot about him that I think is like humorous. So I generally don't have Cain on the show because I just don't find him that funny. Not like him personally. I mean, he might be a funny guy. I just mean like there's nothing to like really joke about. So yeah, it can be tough sometimes, but usually it's what's in the news and what's outrageous.
I bet people would be surprised to find out how many hours it takes to do one Tommy Toehold cartoon, right?
Yeah, it can take a long time. When I first started, it was really challenging because I had done some editing, like I said, with wedding videography, but I really hadn't done the type of editing that I intended to do for the show. And as things progressed and they started getting more advanced and there started being more animation, I really was out of my depth. And at first, it was a real challenge. You're talking days at a time to get episodes done. Now, I've got it down to real science, but it still takes a while to get these done. I have to, come up with the idea. I've got to write the script. After I write the script, I've got to make all of the visuals for it. Then I will record the audio. So I got to do all the impressions. I got to chop all that up. I got to put it all into the editing software and animate it together. And then it's got to render, which can take a while depending on how much animation there is. It's definitely a real process.
Which cartoon is your favorite and why?
So I did this, I don't know what compelled me to do this, but there was a situation with Jake Shields, and I don't even actually remember what happened in real life, but it inspired me to make this sort of noir-inspired episode called The Wrong Tweet Goodnight. And I basically took all these different MMA people and sort of plugged them into this sort of detective noir story. And I don't know, I think I just really love that genre of movie. And so when I saw this story, I don't know what compelled me. It took a lot of work to put together.
Really?
But it was definitely a challenge. And it's still, like, I look at it today and it's my favorite. I could do it better now, but it's still my favorite because it was just such a strange concept that I honestly don't know what compelled me to do it, but I really enjoyed it. And I'd like to make more in that style in the future if I ever get a chance.
Yeah, I like that style too. I was taking a look at some of them this evening, and I do like that because it stands out, because it is so film noir. You know what I mean? I don't know if the average person sits around and looks at it and says, oh, that's different and cool and new. But if you take it amongst all the rest of the ones you've done, it definitely does stand out. What about which cartoon was the easiest to make and why?
So it's funny because this is actually the single video that's made me the most money on its own. I did a video that is sort of like making fun of the glitches in the EA UFC game that came out. Oh my gosh, I'm now. But what happened was I was at the time doing daily videos because I was insane, and I really was struggling to find a topic for that day. But I had seen online that there were these glitches that were popping up, and I thought, wow, it would be really funny if I commentated those as Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg, but them playing it straight as if the glitches were supposed to happen. So I literally took a montage of some clips and put some audio over it. It honestly took me an hour, maybe at the most.
Really?
And I just put it out there. I didn't realize that it was going to be this huge thing. And then, I mean, it just exploded. It's by far, like, on my tombstone, they will mention the EA UFC glitches. They won't mention anything else because, like, I honestly will never probably see anything that gets that sort of mainstream boom ever again. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Good for you. What's
Thank you.
the one cartoon that you think you would love to make but have not done yet, and why?
Oh, that's tough. Well, you know what? There's actually one that's sort of been sitting dormant for a long time, and it is I wanted to make a Star Wars parody in the similar style that I did the Wrong Tweet Goodnight. So I was going to take all these different fighters and sort of start with A New Hope and go from there. And I've had this concept for so long, and I've even fiddled with it a little bit in terms of like some visuals and made them in Photoshop or whatever. But I've never really put it together. But that is the one that, and I've even talked about it on Twitter to sort of motivate me to actually do it because people will ask about it. So it's not quite a reality yet, but I'm hoping one day when I have enough time, I'll be able to put it together.
That sounds awesome. What is the response from fighters, by the way?
You know what? The fighters are really cool about it. When I first started, I was a little bit concerned, because you're ultimately, I feel like the show is good-natured, but I am still, taking little jabs here and there. But I try to keep it at such a level that I feel like is still really respectful of what they do as a profession. And honestly, the reaction has been great. A lot of fighters seem to really enjoy their appearances on the show. Some have actually asked to come on the show. The only negative I've ever had was from Tito Ortiz, who blocked me on Twitter, but I never even interacted with him. I guess he saw a video, didn't like it, and blocked me. But other than Tito, I've literally had never one bad response to a video.
Good for you. Now, you've got that great deal with UFC tonight. How did that come about?
So this is pretty crazy because about a year into what I was doing, so about 2013, the thing had just started kind of blowing up and people started taking notice of it. And I get a call from Dana White.
Wow.
And, yeah, I know. So I'm sitting there in my office and I get a call and it's Dana, and to be honest, I don't even know how he got my number. But he tells me he wants to meet me. So the UFC flies me out to Las Vegas. Like 2 days later, and I'm just like in a whirlwind. I can't even believe it, right? So they take me to the UFC headquarters. I go there. I have lunch with Dana and Lorenzo Fertitta, and they were the ones that initially thought I would be good for Fox. Now, they said, look, we can't tell Fox to put you on because it's ultimately their decision, but we're going to suggest that you get to go work with Fox. And I thought, oh my God, that's so great. So cut to a few months later, the UFC was in my hometown, and Dana invited me to kind of hang out backstage and chit-chat with him before the show. And one of the executives at UFC tonight happened to be, FS1 happened to be there as well because it was an FS1 card. And Dana introduced me to him. He showed Dana pulled his phone out, put out one of my videos, had the guy watch it. And that next day, I had an email from Fox Sports saying, hey, let's work together. Let's do something. My initial run with them happened in 2013. But because of some issues with some the contract and some stuff like that, I had to go away for a bit, but we got it all sorted out. And then more recently, a couple years ago, I got to go back and start it again, and I've been with them ever since, and it's been fantastic.
Good for you. Good for you. I love Dana White. You know, I come from the other side of television, sports, and entertainment reporting, and I interviewed him at I think it was the Demetrius Johnson fight down here in Miami, and I was just so nervous. I was just nervous because he's Dana White, and I just started doing MMA, and I thought, gosh, I'm so nervous. So I whispered it in his ear, you make me more nervous than Johnny Depp, which I have interviewed Johnny Depp, and he was like, oh, don't worry about it. He was so gracious to me, and he has a good sense of humor. So I'm so glad you were able to get that and pursue that with UFC tonight. And tell our fans where they can see UFC tonight every week so they can watch the cartoons.
Yeah, so every Wednesday, it's usually 8 p.m. Sometimes it could be 7 or 9, depending on if there's some sort of event happening. But 8 p.m. EST on FS1. And yeah, if there's a UFC tonight that's new, I'll be on there, and I'll have a little cartoon segment on there. It should be fun.
Before we go today, Tommy, anything else you want to add? And can you give our fans your social media addresses so people can watch you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, they can follow me on Twitter at Tommy Toehold. I have a Facebook page, which is, I believe, facebook.com/Tommy Toehold. I pretty much literally just put videos on there. I'm not really interactive on it. So if you're looking to interact with me, though, Twitter is the place to go. I'm more likely to actually respond to something there. I have an Instagram, but I use it twice a year, so don't worry about that one. And then, of course, the big one would be youtube.com/Tommy Toehold. I try to do weekly videos. I've struggled a little bit recently, but yeah, so that's where the videos will be. And again, thank you so much. I really appreciate getting to talk to you.
No, listen, it's been a pleasure. The creative voice and genius behind Tommy Toehold, the cartoon. I want to thank you, Tommy, for coming on board. I'd also like to thank my Must Love MMA fans for watching. If you have a story, suggestion, or comment, even a rant, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below because, yeah, it's me actually reading them, not my staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Susan Cingari, Instagram Susan Cingari MMA, and on my Facebook page at Susan Cingari MLMMA. Tommy Toehold, thank you so much for speaking with us. And don't forget, fans, to join us next week for part 2 of my interview with Tommy, where we take your fan questions and get to know a little bit more about the creative genius behind this amazing cartoon.